I've got an itch I can't scratch, I'm missing a piece that completes a whole part of me, an open wound scar to see. Everybody come here, gather round, welcome to the freak show, the best in town. What the hell's wrong with me? I don't get along with anybody, honestly. I've been living in my own head constantly, thoughts jumbled round, think I need a new lobotomy. Wait, all these thoughts are too negative, I don't wanna get lost in the sedative. Gotta show them what I got, I'm competitive. You know I'm about to go off, I won't let them win. I'll take a stab, I wanna chase a bag, I wanna weigh, I can change all the things I lack. I gotta face the facts, I got a taste in that. Got me obsessed with the rest, I got an itch to scratch. Slowing down, I'll give up everything. Daunting all, if I could see my dreams, I'll make things right. 'Cause I'll do anything to make what I want a reality.
There have been many forms of Freemasonry in the past because men of other days did not have Bibles on their altars or conduct their ceremonies in precisely the same manner as Freemasons of today, and it's no reason for repudiating them and claiming that their observances related to something else, because the Brotherhood has always been the same. It has existed under many different names and many different occupations, and that's why it is difficult for those who are easily deflected from their goal in research away from the path. And they say, well, it ends here, so it could not have stemmed from ancient times. It was started in this lodge in England, because they can't find anything before that that was known as Freemason. The thread that we have followed has not been the name, ladies and gentlemen, nor the occupation of Masonry, but the principles and ideals and beliefs and the hidden secret religion and the scientific bent of this group. And when you learn to conduct your research along those lines, the path stands out like a neon tube on the darkest night, and it is easy to follow, all the way back to the very beginning of human history. The Brotherhood has existed. This is, ladies and gentlemen, the heart and soul of the truth of the mystery religions that gave birth to socialism, communism, humanism, and is at war, totally and completely at war with all the other religions of the earth. Their goal is to completely destroy all existing nation states, all existing churches and religions, and to shackle the mob in a system of world totalitarian socialist government. And so you had better listen to this. Most of what you think you understand about ancient Egypt, you don't understand
at all. For instance, the pyramids are at least three, the greatest pyramids, what we know as the Great Pyramids on the plains at Giza, were not tombs for any pharaohs. They were temples of initiation. And the initiation that the ancient Egyptians performed was much like the initiation of George Herbert Walker Bush and his son, George W. Bush, in the crypt. Why did you think they called it the crypt? At Yale University. They take an oath of silence and an oath of loyalty to their fellow brothers. They cannot talk without violating their oaths, and many of these oaths are blood-curdling, where the candidate actually agrees to his own murder should he betray the secret.
You were both in Skull and Bones, the secret society.
It's so secret we can't talk about it.
What does that mean for America? The conspiracy theorists are going to go
I'm
wild.
sure they are. I don't know. I haven't seen the web.
Number 322.
You both were members of Skull and Bones, a secret society at Yale. What does that tell us?
Not much, because it's a secret.
Is there a secret handshake? Is there a secret code?
I wish there were something secret I could manifest.
322, a secret number?
There are all kinds of secrets.
I've spoken of 1,000 points of light, of all the community organizations that are spread like stars throughout the nation doing good. We will work hand in hand, encouraging, sometimes leading, sometimes being led, rewarding. We will work on this in the White House, in the cabinet agencies. I will go to the people and the programs that are the brighter points of light, and I'll ask every member of my government to become involved. The old ideas are new again because they're not old. They are timeless.
Listen very carefully, ladies and gentlemen. There is an ancient text, Egyptian, called the Ritual. And the rubric to chapter 129 of the Ritual says of the Manas, "And he shall be established as a star face to face with Septet, Sirius, Sothis, the dog star. And his corruptible body shall be as a god forever. To deify the human is to make a star of him." The Manas himself prays, chapter 102, "Let me be among the stars that never rest." It is promised in chapter 164 that he shall become a star of heaven. The Osiris Nu pleads in chapter 188, "May I enter into the house of his body, which behold hath become one of the starry gods, one of the 1,000 points of light. Thou seizest the hands of the imperishable stars, for behold, thou art one of the gods."
Doubtful many of you may be, what you've heard tonight is the truth. Many of you will ask, what is the purpose of this? Well, you're going to find out that the ancient religion that we're studying is still practiced today by many who hold a terrible power over us within our own government and in governments around the world. And it is this duplication of the misuse of the power and the ability to hold knowledge and technology and secrecy over the ignorant herds of sheeple, if you will, who are so trusting and so believing and so magnificently faithful that they willingly follow the Judas goat to the shearing pens and then ultimately to the slaughterhouse. And so I advise you to pay close attention to these lessons, and don't be stupid and don't be foolish, and don't think that you know all the answers, because there are very few of you in this listening audience who have ever bothered to study anything beyond the end of your own nose, nor have you ever listened to any other than the liar who stands behind the pulpit of your church and preaches to you the doctrines that cause you to follow these Judas goats. And there's many more than one, believe me.
Many ages have elapsed since the Egyptian priest-king passed through the pillars of Thebes, ages before what they call the sinking of Atlantis, thousands of years before the Christian era. Egypt was a land, they say, of great truths. It was certainly the land of the mysteries. The hand of the great white brotherhood was held out to the empire of the Nile, and the passages of the ancient pyramid resounded with the chants of the initiates. Yes, for they were never built as tombs, but temples of initiation, and it was then that the Pharaoh, now called half human and half divine, reigned in ancient Egypt. Try to picture for a moment the great hall of Luxor, or, if you will, the Luxor Hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada. The great hall of Luxor, its inscriptive columns holding up domes of solid granite, each column carved with the histories of the gods. There at the upper end of the chamber sat the Pharaoh of the Nile in his robes of state, around him his counselors, chief among them the priest of the temple. An imposing spectacle it was. The gigantic frame of the later Atlantean, robed in gold and priceless jewels, on his head the crown of the north and south, the double empire of the ancients, on his forehead the coiled serpent of the initiate, the serpent which was raised in the wilderness that all who looked upon it might live. This Urias represented the sleeping serpent power in man, which coiled head downward around the tree of life, drove him from the garden of the Lord, but which raised upon the cross became the symbol of the Christ in the mysteries. The Pharaoh was an initiate of Scorpio. Scorpio, another word for Scorpio in the mysteries, is Lucifer, and the serpent is the transmuted Scorpio energy, which, working upward in the regenerated individual, is called the Kundalini. The Kundalini. The serpent was the sign of initiation. It meant that within him the serpent had been raised. For the true Pharaoh was a priest of God. Which God you will discover as we go.
Plato was initiated in the Great Pyramid as he lay in the sarcophagus for 3 days and nights, during which he was imparted a secret knowledge that he was to guard and to use, but never to reveal. Pythagoras spent 20 years in Egypt trying to get the priests to initiate him before they finally did.
A master mason is told in his initiation rites that, quote, "This degree will make you a brother to pirates and corsairs," unquote. And folks, I'll explain that to you a little later.
The Templars were by no means crushed. They just moved underground with all their wealth and power, and their vast fleets became the pirates that sailed the seven seas. And you all wondered where the pirate treasures went. You see, these pirates didn't just raid ships and get a few gold pieces here and there. They raided the great Spanish galleons. They raided the ships full of wealth and treasures from the east. Sailed down on every kind of ship, carrying every kind of goods and money and wealth and metals and silk that they could find. And all of this wealth vanished, ladies and gentlemen, for the pirates never were wealthy. And you visit their bastions where they all came together as brothers. Did you ever wonder why the pirates never warred amongst themselves? This wealth was funneled right back in to the Templar Order, underground and through the Masonic lodges, to work their will upon the world. And it still happens that way.
Crusade, this war on terrorism, it's going to take a while.
Now remember, ladies and gentlemen, if you go to your uncle or your brother or your father or your grandfather and ask them about the truth of these things, you will not be told the truth. They cannot tell you the truth. They are sworn to secrecy upon penalty of death. And if they ask them about this blood oath that they take, and they tell you, well, it's just some silly oath, and we just do it for ceremonial reasons, do you really believe that? And if that's the truth, do they mean their oath that they swear upon a Bible in a court of law? Do they mean their oath if they promise you something? Or if they swear to you that something is true or false? A grown man does not give a blood oath unless he means it, ladies and gentlemen. And with the orders of co-masonry, women are included in this also. The Order of the Eastern Star and many others. So don't expect them to tell you the truth. They cannot. They cannot and will not. Yet they have written it over the years, and I have slowly but surely exposed it to you in their own writing, in their own words, over the years. These people are by far the greatest group of chronic liars that have ever lived upon the face of this earth. Manipulators, deceivers. And who is the great deceiver?
This degree, we are told, was open to Egyptian kings and priests alone, and only those specially recommended by an initiate could enter it. The usual procedure was that the Pharaoh himself introduced the candidate to the priests. By them he was sent from Heliopolis, the city of the sun, and you'll never escape from the sun when you're studying the mysteries, to the Memphis priests. From there he went to Thebes. He was circumcised, forbidden to eat poultry or fish, and generally had to abstain from wine. He was put for several months in an underground cave and asked to write down his reflections. When he had done this, he was led to a passage supported by the pillars of Hermes, where he had to learn certain things which were inscribed thereon. As soon as he was word perfect, the Thesmorphus, or the introducer, came to him with a strong whip to keep the uninitiated or the profane at bay. He was blindfolded and his hands bound with cords. Now follows the procedure from the first degree of the select body. The candidate was led to the gate of men, where the introducer touched the shoulder of an apprentice, Portophorus, standing there on guard. He in turn knocked on the gate, which was opened. When the aspirant entered, he was questioned on various matters by the Hierophant, after which he was led around the Barantha in an artificial storm of wind, rain, thunder, and lightning. If he showed no sign of fear, Menes, the expounder, explained the laws of the Krata Rapoa, to which he had to agree. He was then taken in front of the Hierophant, made to kneel, and vowed fidelity with a sword point at his throat. As witness, he called upon the sun, moon, and stars. And where have you heard that before? His eyes were then unbandaged, and he was placed between two spare pillars, called bateles, where lay a ladder of 7 steps, behind which were 8 doors of different metals of gradually increasing purity. The Hierophant, then addressing those present, as many Musai, are children of the work of celestial investigation, exhorted them to govern their passions and fix their thoughts upon God. Now the sun, the moon, and the stars, you should know by now, represent the doctrine, the church, and the initiates. The sun, of course, is the doctrine, the moon is the church, and the stars are the body of initiates, or the 1,000 points of light. The candidate was taught, folks, that the latter symbolized the wanderings of the soul. He was told of the causes of wind, thunder, and lightning, and given other valuable information, such as medical lore. He was given the password of recognition of this degree, which was, and I spell it because I don't know the correct pronunciation, A-M-O-U-N, meaning secrecy. He was taught a grip, given a pyramidal cap, and an apron called xylon. Around his neck was a collar, and he wore no other clothes. His duty was to guard the gate of men in his turn. The Portophorus was now able, after showing his devotion, to proceed to the second degree. Following a prolonged fast, he was taken into a dark chamber called Endymion, the invitation grotto. He was now of the degree of Neochorus. Handsome women brought him dainty food. They were the wives of the priest, who endeavored to excite his love. If he resisted these advances, he was further lectured by the master of ceremonies, and led into an assembly, where the stolista, or water-bearer, poured water over him. Then a living serpent was thrown at him. The whole room was full of snakes to test his courage. He was then led to 2 high pillars, between which stood a griffin driving a wheel before him. The pillars symbolized east and west, the griffin the sun, and the wheel of 4 spokes the 4 seasons. He was taught the use of the level and instructed in geometry and architecture. He received a rod entwined by serpents, and that rod is still used today by the medical community. It's called the caducus. And he received the password Heave, meaning serpent, and was told the story of the fall of man. The sign consisted in crossing the arms over the chest, and his duty was to wash the pillars. Now, when the initiate was initiated into the third degree, the member was given the title of melanophorus. He was led to an anteroom over whose door was written, Gate of Death. The room was full of copies of embalmed bodies in coffins.
The most important of all of these ancient groups is the Brotherhood of the Snake or Dragon, and was simply known as the Mysteries. The snake and dragon are symbols that represent wisdom. The father of wisdom is Lucifer, also called the light bearer. The focus of worship for the Mysteries was Osiris, another name of Lucifer. Osiris was the name of a bright star that the ancients believed had been cast down onto the earth. The literal meaning of Lucifer is bringer of light, or the morning star. After Osiris was gone from the sky, the ancients saw the sun as the representation of Osiris, or more correctly, Lucifer. Osiris was represented by the sun. That's a quote from Albert Pike. Isaiah 14, verse 12, How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer? Fred Giddings, Symbolism in Occult Art, said, It is claimed that after Lucifer fell from heaven, he brought with him the power of thinking as a gift for mankind. Most of the greatest minds that ever lived were initiated into the society of mysteries by secret and dangerous rites, some of which were very cruel. Some of the most famous were known as Osiris, Isis, Sabazius, Cybele, and Eleusis. Plato was one of these initiates, and he describes some of the mysteries in his writings. Plato's initiation encompassed 3 days of entombment in the Great Pyramid. None of the Great Pyramids were ever tombs, ladies and gentlemen. They were always, from the beginning, temples of initiation. Plato's initiation encompassed 3 days of entombment in the Great Pyramid, during which time he died symbolically, was reborn, and was given secrets that he was to preserve. For the 3 days he lay in the sarcophagus, and that's the true purpose. Plato's writings are full of information on the mysteries. Manly P. Hall stated in his book, The Secret Teachings of All Ages, that, quote, the illumined of antiquity entered its pyramid of Giza portals as men. They came forth as gods, end quote. I say they came forth as men, deluded to believe that they were gods. The ancient Egyptian word for pyramid was kuti, which meant glorious light. Mr. Hall says also, quote, the pyramids of the great Egyptian temples of initiation, end quote. The first secret, ladies and gentlemen, that one must know to even begin to understand the mysteries is that their members believe that there are but few truly mature minds in the world. They believe that those minds belong exclusively to them. And so, they believe that all of the rest of us are nothing but stupid animals, to be shepherded, to be sheared, and if necessary, and when necessary, to be led to the slaughter. Then the initiatory rites of the secret fraternal orders, the initiate lies down in a coffin and suffers a symbolic death. He is then raised with the grip of the lion's paw, given a new name and a new life.
The Gnostics believed themselves to be intellectual aristocrats. Their knowledge was only for the few who were ready to receive it. And that's why they do not recruit. You must knock at the door, and you and only you know when you're ready to receive it. And this is what made them a secret cult, not the fear of persecution. They had their own passwords and shaking hands. They tickled the palm as an identification signal, and they helped one another in every conceivable way, just as Freemasons do today. For they are one and the same. as they have always been one and the same with all the different versions of the mystery throughout the ages. Like boot camp, the initiation into the armed forces, important aspects of human thought that are universally compelling are merged to train and maintain the efforts of a group of people to operate in a certain direction. Initiation bonds the members together in mysticism. Neophytes gain knowledge of a secret, giving them special status. The ancient meaning of neophyte is, quote, planted anew or reborn, end quote. A higher initiation is in reality a promotion, inspiring loyalty and the desire to move up to the next rung. The goals of the society are reinforced, causing the initiated to act toward those goals in everyday life. Most never even realize what they are doing. But that brings about a change in the political and social action of the member. The change is always in the best interest of the goals of the leaders of the secret society. The leaders are called adepts, priests, the illumined ones. 1,000 points of light, the stars in the firmament of the heavens. And I could go on. This can best be illustrated by the soldier, trained to follow orders without thinking. The result is often the wounding or death of the soldier for the realization of the commander's goal, which may or may not be good for the overall community, and certainly was not good for the soldier. And maybe now you can understand why the wrath of the military came down around Specialist Michael New's shoulders when he refused to wear the United Nations uniform. Initiation is a means of rewarding ambitious men who can be trusted. You will notice that the higher the degree of initiation, the fewer the members who possess the degree. Now, this is not because the other members are not ambitious, but because a process of very careful selection is being conducted. You see, a point is reached where no effort is good enough without a pull-up by the higher members. Most members never proceed beyond this point and never learn the real secret purpose of the group. The member frozen at that point, from that point on, serves only as a part of the political power base, as indeed he has always done, and provides a political consensus that leads the body politic in a direction away from which it would have gone if this group had not existed in their midst. You may have guessed by now that initiation is a way to determine who can and cannot be trusted, who believes in the mystery God and who does not. A method of deciding exactly who is to become an adept may be decided during initiation by literally asking the candidate to spit upon the Christian cross. If the candidate refuses, the members congratulate him and tell him, "You have made the right choice, as a true adept would never do such a terrible thing." The newly initiated might find it disconcerting, however, that he or she never advances any higher, no matter how hard they work, study, participate, or beg. If instead the candidate spits upon the cross, he or she has demonstrated a knowledge of one of the mysteries and soon will find him or herself a candidate for the next higher level. You see, almost all of these require a belief in a higher being, but they never, ever tell you who that being is. And it is forbidden to mention the name of Jesus the Christ in the lodge. And that should give you a clue. The mystery, literally, is that religion is but a tool to control the masses. Knowledge or wisdom is their only God, through which man himself will become God. Wisdom is represented and has been represented throughout the history of the world as the serpent, the snake,
Satan, Lucifer, the snake and the dragon are both symbols of wisdom. Lucifer is the personification of the symbol. It was Lucifer who tempted Eve to entice Adam to eat of the tree of knowledge. Tree of knowledge. Tree of knowledge. Had nothing to do, ladies and gentlemen, with any apple. And thus free man from the bonds of ignorance. The worship, which is a lot different from study of knowledge, science, or technology, is Satanism in its purest form. And its god is Lucifer. Its secret symbol is the all-seeing eye in the pyramid.
In more than one place in the Middle East, as well as in small groups in Western Europe, there are still followers of various schools of Gnosticism. They mainly follow the ideas held by Valentinus, with some variations. And this school teaches its initiates that matter is more evil than good, that man must be purified by mental concentration, that after death man will rejoin that from which he has been severed and will be unified with those whom he loves in the great intelligence. They also believe that all matter will eventually be destroyed by fire. And if they have their way, that could be absolutely true. The Mandeans, a small but tenacious community which dwells in Iraq, follow an ancient form of Gnosticism, which practices initiation, ecstasy, and some rituals which have been said to resemble those of the Freemasons. And of course they do, because they are. In every Masonic temple you will see somewhere up on the wall a big letter G. And you will see it in their symbology, in their books. You will see this letter G. And if you ask a Freemason, being bound to the oath never to tell you or reveal the secrets to the profane, which is what they call those who are not initiates or adepts in the mysteries, he will tell you that it stands for God, but that is a lie. It does not stand for God, for I've researched it deeply all the way up the ladder of the stages of initiation. And at the top, those adepts known as the priesthood know this large letter G to represent Gnosticism. And it is an admission that they are indeed the recipients of the ancient Gnostic. They are Gnostics, and they are looking to attain the Gnosis, through which they will receive apotheosis. And they believe that they are the only ones in the world who possess truly mature minds, and thus are the only ones in the world capable of ruling the rest of us, whom they refer to as cattle. Cattle. Now in the lower ranks are the nursery for all you Blue Lodge Master Masons out there who think you know so much, and are nothing more than the greatest group of followers ever conceived and let loose upon humanity. Yes, in the nursery, the member was very much in the dark as to the way in which the order was run and how it should accomplish its design of freeing the world. As he progressed, however, he found that a part of his service to the society was to gain financial and social power, and to place them at the disposal of the group. Indeed, he was expected to be a diligent Mason, and to try to gain control over Freemason funds. It was not until the 10th rite of promotion had been completed that the member was given, with the grade of priest, certain definite knowledge. And now today, in the order known as the Scottish Rite, this information is not given until the candidate actually reaches the 30th degree, according to the actual writings of the man who was the Grand Commander of all Freemasonry of the world, and of the Scottish Rite of Freemasonry in the United States, Mr. Pike, General Pike. Well, this knowledge included the fact that the Illuminati were proposing to destroy princes and prelates throughout the world, and were to remove forever the feeling of local nationality from the minds of men. Another goal was to destroy all existing religions. The ways in which this was to be done involved infiltrating high positions in education, administration of government, the military, and, of course, the press. The very highest degrees showed that the rationalism and materialism of the thinkers who developed it were determined to stamp out all belief in religion, God, and any faith in a deity, the initiate was told, were human inventions, and they had no meaning whatsoever. Now, this was developed further, and the member who arrived at the highest position in the order, or that designated as Rex or King, learned that he was now the same as any king, on the same level, with the same rights and the same divine right of rule, and that all men were capable of equal advancement. But all men were not equal. Hence the need for kings over man was an illusion perpetrated by those in power, and this perpetration was to be broken at all costs. And the highest, for the man who sat at the head of the council of hidden supervisors, made up of 9 members, was designated as Rex Mundi, or literally translated, King of the World. In their machinations to overthrow, topple the kings and queens of all of the countries of the world from their thrones, they established the United States of America in the English colonies in the New World, and its ultimate goal, its secret destiny, was to be the catalyst to bring into the world what they called the Great Society or the New World Order. And it certainly worked. Dear listeners, as you can look back through history, the granting of the common man of liberty, fraternity, equality, freedom that he'd never tasted or known before in history, lit the spark that then ignited the French Revolution, of course, with the leadership and the manipulation of the people of the Illuminati, the lodges of Freemasonry, the Ancient Order of the Rose and Cross, and others. The highest level are all the same, with the same goals. And this spark of revolution spread throughout the world. And until we all grow up and learn how to stop this, it will continue. As the secret societies propel us, manipulate us, deceive us, lie, operating in secret, infiltrating everything decent and good that man has ever built, destroying it from within, bringing closer and closer their goal of what they believe to be a utopia on earth, a one-world, totalitarian, socialist order. They hope to create the world where they will rule, as being the ones who possess the only truly mature minds. They will establish a council of advisors to a world charismatic political and religious leader who will be the outward rule. But he will really take his orders from this benevolent despotism, this council of learned elders, and everyone on the face of this earth will be under total control for every 24-hour period of their lives. There will be one world religion catering to the needs of man, not man obeying the laws of any god. The general rule will be, as has been touted many, many times by these people, do as thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. And even murder will be considered to be a learning experience, provided that the perpetrator actually learns something. People who exhibit violent tendencies as a matter of normal behavior on their part will simply be eliminated. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope this is beginning to come together and make sense to you. They believed that God was evil. He was holding man prisoner in the Garden of Eden in the bonds, the chains of ignorance. Lucifer set man free from these bonds, these chains of ignorance, with the gift of intellect, through the use of which man himself will become God. Lucifer is Prometheus. Lucifer is the lightning bolt that strikes the tree and sets it afire, from which man took a burning branch, and by adding more wood, kept the fire burning, and noticed that when he piled certain rocks around the fire, and they got hot enough, something melted and flowed out into the ground. From this, he learned to make tools. You see, without the fire that the philosophers of fire worship, without the serpent, Lucifer, there would be no Ford Broncos today for me to drive. This is what they believe. And so they worship the symbol, which is Lucifer, and they strive through their work to accomplish the great plan and guide the evolution of man into apotheosis.
The symbols that modern man embraces with the naive trust of an infant would be tantamount to billboards reading, quote, "This way to your death and enslavement," end quote, to the understanding of a traditional peasant of antiquity. It was their world. They understood it perfectly. I doubt seriously any medieval man would have much difficulty in feeling a sense of overwhelming foreboding in the face of the Soviet hammer and sickle symbol. Yet most modern literate people obviously don't know a thing about what that symbol actually represents, except on the most profane level as the implements of the farmer and the worker. You really believe that? The sickle, ladies and gentlemen, symbolizes Saturn, also known as Kronos, Saturn, or as the Greeks called it, Demiurgos, the operating engineer of the universe, as opposed to the creator of that universe, Satan, Lucifer. In the reign of Saturn, we see exorbitant building and modeling activities, and this is reflected in the Masonic reference to their god as the big builder or architect, and their nickname, the Builders, who erected the Tower of Babel. All this sounds reasonably attractive. Many of us can appreciate magnificent buildings and splendid projects along those lines. But as usual, ladies and gentlemen, there's much more to it than this. You see, that's the exoteric interpretation. Underneath is the truth. How many of you drive Saturns? How many of you drive Mazdas? How many of you even know the origin of those names and what they stand for?
That I'm a fellow traveler, to use a communist term.
For half a century now, through wind and rain and hail and snow, it's flickered its solemn duty. Grief and hope made tangible in the glow of a flame. Lighting it was the last public duty Mrs. Kennedy had that sad day. Just where the First Lady got the idea for the eternal flame isn't known for sure.
As much due diligence as they have practiced to attempt to keep all of this a secret, ladies and gentlemen, over the hundreds and thousands of years of their existence, it has crept out in writings and in hieroglyphic reliefs, in books, in symbols, in ceremonies, in the relief and in the buildings of ancient and modern architecture.
Of special interest is the powerful society in Afghanistan, in ancient times called the Roshaniya, or the Illuminated Ones. There are actually references to this very mystical cult going back through history to the House of Wisdom at Cairo. At one time, Arabia, ladies and gentlemen, was the seat of all of the knowledge in the world. In fact, they had the only universities in the entire world. The major tenets of this cult were the abolition of private property, the elimination of religion, the elimination of nation-states, the belief that illumination emanated from the Supreme Being who desired a class of perfect men and women to carry out the organization and direction of the world. Belief in a plan to reshape the social system of the world by first taking control of individual countries one by one, and the belief that after reaching the fourth degree, one could communicate directly with the unknown supervisors who had imparted knowledge to initiates throughout the ages. Wise men will again recognize the brotherhood. In fact, the brotherhood today believes in these very same tenets. And if you are indeed observant, you can see that this is exactly what they have done and what they are in the process of completing. It's called socialism. Can you hear the echo of the Nazi Party?
$240 million Americans standing up in concert with each other, holding a rifle in their hands, can stop it instantly in its tracks.
There was that ant that stood up to me.
Yeah, but we can forget about him.
Yeah, it was just one ant. One ant.
Yeah, you're right. It's just one ant.
Yeah, boss. They're puny.
Puny? Say, let's pretend this grain is a puny little ant. Did that hurt?
Nope.
Well, how about this one?
Are you kidding?
Well, how about this? You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay?